There's a lot of things that could go wrong in business that are stopping your growth. As you guys know, if you listen to this podcast, messaging is a really big one. But there's other things, and part of what I teach inside of our program that I don't talk a lot about on the podcast is alignment. And what I mean by that is if you're moving into a direction that is not a part of your purpose or your dharma or something that interests you, and you're chasing it for the wrong reasons, especially if you have a personal brand, sometimes it just doesn't work, even if you're doing everything right. And today's guest was in that exact situation. And what happens is when you finally listen and you make that pivot and move into the direction that you're supposed to be moving into, growth can be explosive. I've experienced this in my business numerous times. And today's guest went from 0 to multiple six figures because of one pivot. Our guest today was able to go from 0 to multiple six-figure business selling high-ticket programs, helping health and fitness professionals grow their own business, create effective content, and more. So if you want to hear this journey, all the lessons that were involved in it, all the lessons and things that help that growth, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of New Generation Entrepreneurs. Today, we have an amazing interview lined up for you. This one is one that I'm going to hold close to my heart. It's always amazing when we are able to bring in people who've been a part of our ecosystem for a long time, who started off as students, who have a great story to tell, who have been really crushing it and can share their success and some of the lessons with you guys. And that's exactly what this episode is here to do today. So today I have the honor of interviewing someone who came into our ecosystem, I don't even know how many years ago, as a student, and over the years evolved into a coach, and then one of our senior coaches, and one of our top coaches who is working with our top tier students, but is at the same time grown her business from wherever she was, and we'll tell that story here in a second, to a multiple six-figure business. And so I'm really excited to have Beverley Simpson on the call today from Beverley Simpson Fitness. So Beverley, welcome to the call. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I thought, what a beautiful introduction. I said, oh, am I going to start crying before I even speak? Maybe.
I won't tell him you just quit. I won't tell him just kidding, but not really. Beverly, this has been so well that she's like, I'm going to have to end my journey as a coach because I need to focus on my business, which is, for me, it's always the goal. Like, that's always a beautiful, beautiful thing to see happen. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Beverly, and tell your story and share your lessons with our audience. Let's just start off by talking about what it is you do specifically, and then we'll talk about the journey and how you got to here with the multiple six-figure business.
Okay, I'd love that. And also, first, I would like to just share that, deciding to end my journey with the Team Lucero group was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, because being part of the new generation entrepreneurship, mentorship, both as a student and as a coach, I continue to learn and sharpen the saw. And I got so many powerful lessons from being a student and being a coach that sometimes it was hard. It was hard to decide that now is my time to really focus on taking this multiple six-figure business to 7. So I just want to share that. It was one of the hardest things I had to do. Second, I came into, and we talked about this years ago, years in the internet space feel like decades. It's like dog years for entrepreneurs. But I came into the space first as a former district fitness manager from Crunch. So I was running multiple gyms in the Manhattan and New Jersey space. And I wanted to build my own gym, essentially online, for moms. That's where I started. And I came into the program, and I remember we were in it. We were taking action. We were really dialing in messaging, and just for some reason, it wasn't clicking. And I want to rephrase, because it was clicking. It just wasn't working in the way that we wanted it to work. I mean, it was literally, we took that process from, 10K years to six figures. And then we made this one pivot, which was I just started doing online what I was doing in person. In person, I was a district fitness manager. I was running gyms. So I just made that shift online, and then we went to multiple six figures. And the fundamentals of messaging really we took with us into that pivot, but that's when it started to blow up.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talk about inside of NGM is sitting in the silence and remembering who you are, because I can tell you all the right things to say and give you all the frameworks, but if we're not saying it the right way, or it's not aligned with who you are and where you should be going, it feels like pushing a boulder up a hill. And I remember when we were like working with your stuff, and that's kind of what it was like. We ran an ad, and the ad was doing really well, like leads for super low cost, but they weren't converting. And it was just like, I looked at everything on paper, and I'm like, the messaging's good, the communication's good, like everything's good. And then I just, my last sort of ditch effort is always, is this really what you want to be doing? And is there something else you should be doing or could be doing? And those pivots is what allows for that flood of momentum to come in, or the flood of results to come in. And I remember the moment that you had sort of made that pivot, we're still doing the same stuff, but the results seemed a lot easier. It was like you're going with the flow now, except for upstream. And so I guess my first question for you, because I know there's people listening who are doing what they think they should be doing what their degree is in or their certifications are in. And it may not be totally what their sole purpose is, or what their dharma is, or what is an alignment for them. What for you would you say was like that moment of clarity where you're like, okay, I need to make the pivot? Like what was happening to make you make that decision?
So I think there were two important things that were coming up, and one of them might make us go sideways, but I think it's important to share, because I think what was coming up for me is the inclination to do it was constantly there, and it was getting affirmed by what was being communicated to me. So it was like my old trainers were coming into my DMs, and they were talking to me and asking me questions. And I was in a mastermind at the time, and they were all asking me questions that were around business building and selling, and really mastering the art of selling without selling. But what was coming up for me consistently was this feeling of being an imposter, is what people would call it, imposter syndrome, feeling like, you haven't done X yet, whatever that X means. As a high achiever, I noticed that X starts to mean all different things. You haven't built a six-figure business. And then once you do that, you just move the goal marker. Now you haven't made seven figures. So who are you to be doing this? Those feelings were constantly coming up. And I bring it up because those feelings don't necessarily go away, whatever you achieve. What happened to me in that moment, and what I continue when those feelings come up, is to remind myself that it's a good thing. It means you care. It means that you care about the people that you're serving, whether you're serving them in a fitness capacity, or whatever is coming up for you, or whatever you're being called to do. Those feelings typically mean that you're afraid, especially and from a place of caring, and especially in the health profession. Our number one, whether you're a doctor, a personal trainer, whatever you do, the number one rule is do no harm. So if there's an inclination that potentially you could be putting someone at risk or hurting them, there's no way you're going to want to do that. So those feelings, they never go away. Wherever you are there, wherever you go, there you are. I'm constantly working with them, because that's what courage is, right? Courage is not the absence of fear. It's with fear. And so those feelings were coming up for me, as well as acknowledging that, hey, these are the questions that are being asked of you. This is what you're presenting. This is clearly something that you enjoy doing. So for me, once I recognized those two things, I just made the decision. Like, it's kind of the difference between an authority and an expert. You are an authority the moment you decide that you are one. So I just made that decision right there of, okay, enough, let's do this. I get to live in the and. I can be an expert now at this level and continue to grow. And I still live by that.
Yeah. Well, I think, to sum it up, it's kind of like, it sounds like there was this internal knowing of like, there's something else I want, or something else that I should be doing. And then it was combined with the universe giving you these signs of, this is what people are asking me for. This is what people are coming to me for. I'm just naturally getting interest in these things. And then combine that with the third thing, which is like, I've been trying this for a while and doing things, and gotten the help that I needed to get, and it's still not working. It's like the trifecta. It's like all three of these like kind of came at a head at once. And then you had to have, like you said, that courage to kind of take that step into the direction you wanted to go. And what happened when you did that?
I mean, it was after that moment, right, and making that decision, and then we put some, structure and systems in place, which also had some holes, right, which we can talk about as well. We fixed those, but once I put that structure and the systems in place around that, I mean, it was the exact process that took me from 10K years to 10K months to 10K days.
Yeah,
and pretty quickly, pretty quickly.
I was gonna say, was it? Okay. I was going to ask, was it quick or not quick?
Yeah. It was within, I want to say 3 to 6 months. And that's also this is the other thing too, that people don't really talk about, is if you scale too fast and you're not prepared for it, then you might fall into some trouble. Right. So
yeah, I mean, we've run into that when we scaled like Video 4X the first time. It was like, growth was so fast and I was working so much and things were falling through the cracks. And it was just like, it was a lot. It was exciting, but it was also very stressful. So what were some of the things that started to happen as you scaled that you had to fix?
Oh my gosh. So one of the things that I had to do, I mean, and this was intense. Like this was an intense thing, right? But we had scaled pretty quickly, and I had made we had sold 500 grand in contracts. So meaning that we had.
In how short of a time? In like the first year?
No. This was probably in our second year. This was in our second year of this. And we had sold $500 in contracts, which is really cool and really exciting. Okay. And so we were fulfilling on this. So this means that we had the team, the resources in time, energy, and effort, and we were putting the money behind fulfilling on 500 grand's worth of contracts. Okay. Yeah. The reason why this matters is because we were making decisions based on cash deferred, as opposed to making decisions on cash collected, which then caused when we had over 200 grand default, right, this caused the business to all of a sudden find constraints that we were not prepared for. And yeah, it's kind of, you hear this a lot in the entrepreneur world, which is, people have, marketer math, where they have 7-figure revenues, but they have spent seven figures to acquire that client. Well, that's not what we did. It wasn't like we spent $500,000 in ads to all of a sudden, that didn't pertain to me. So I wasn't hearing that. I was like, oh, that's not what we're doing. Our profit margins are fine, until you start to really look. Like, this is why those systems are essential, because when I started to really look at cash being spent, what our expenses were, what our profit margins were, I realized that, we were not prepared for this fallout. So this was a lesson that I had to learn. Unfortunately, didn't want to learn, but had to. So then we turned things around, and I remember you and I were having conversations about this, and we were like, here's the plan. This is going to take us about 3 to 6 months to fix. And it did. It took us about three months to turn it around. And here were the things that we did. We fixed. The first things that we did is we just tightened up. Well, before we get into some of that strategy, I stopped making decisions on cash deferred. That was number one. That was like, didn't do that. I've never done that again.
It's hard because I know you referenced, like the cost to acquire the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, yeah, we have plenty of money. Like, it's even on cash collected, we're fine. But then in that, since you're high ticket and high touch point, there's fulfillment on that
Mm-hmm.
that also has to go into the cost factor. And then if that's not taken into account, that's when you start to run into trouble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when you get, 200K defaulting, it's, you run quickly into some issues. So what did you do to start to fix these?
Okay, so then what I started to do, and then it also messes with your mind a little bit, just, for the record, because you start to think like, well, because you're trying to be discerning and you're trying to look at the data. But I think that's another thing, is that people will say, oh, make data-driven decisions, but you have to be able to be discerning in what the data is telling you. Because I thought I was making data-driven decisions, but I wasn't looking close enough. So things like, oh, this must be a sales team issue. This must be is this a fulfillment issue? Just for me personally, started going into like, oh, maybe I'm doing it all wrong and my offer sucks and all those things that you go through when you care about helping people. So then what I started looking at was, okay, well, that's, you start to coach yourself, especially as a coach, right? And then you also get support because your own, dentists also have dentists. They can't do their own teeth. Right. So I started talking and processing this. And so once we realized, okay, the people that we're bringing into this container, we're just not necessarily ready for the level of speed that this promise required. So that was number one. We took a closer look at the leads. Then we raised the bar for the emotional investment. So it's not for...
What does that mean?
So it's not my place to say, hey, this is expensive, expensive compared to what? But I wanted my people to have more skin in the game, more of a commitment to say, and not to me, it's a commitment to themselves. So instead of having these like fast acting activated deposits, we had them do a 40% down on cash collected.
Did you notice a drop in sales when you did that?
Well, I didn't. Actually, I didn't, because in addition to that, I also changed my messaging. So I also changed the way I communicated the deliverables, because part of it was also, I won't speak for you, but I'll speak for me. Sometimes when I'm in it, I can be a little desensitized to where people are at the beginning of their stages of their entrepreneurship. So for me, $10,000 or $5,000 is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But to someone who's investing that for the first time, that's scary. I remember what it was like for me to make that decision. But now I'm a little desensitized to it. So yeah, of course you could make that back in 2 seconds, especially when you're used to having $10,000, $40,000 days, So anyway, so part of it was me making sure that my communication of what is required to hit that was clear. And I feel like
that came through in the messaging, yeah?
Correct.
So the messaging talked to a lot of this stuff. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm assuming, again, I don't know what your answer will be, but I'm assuming the communication and messaging shifts and changes you started to make was just speaking to that higher level person that you wanted to attract, their problems, their thoughts, their mistakes, their things that they're looking for online, all of that stuff, correct?
Correct. And it was also a communication of commitment to themselves, not to me, but to themselves. Like, hey, listen, this is not going to be, let's turn your computer into an ATM without you, with you blinking 3 times. Like, you're going to have to put in efficient effort. This is not like a silver bullet, that's like taking a diet pill and just assuming that you're going to not have to do work to be healthy, Yeah. So that I had to change. And then I had to also change the expectations of commitment. Yeah. And that was in my communication and messaging. So that changed the game. And then there was a level of investment for them emotionally to show up for themselves, not for me, because it's not about me.
Mm-hmm. And did you make any like, I guess like logical or strategic decision where like the stuff you're talking about now, I think is more what I would call beneath the surface. This is like the messaging and the communication and who we're attracting, the psychology behind that, is sort of like that under the radar stuff. But there also are logical strategic things like getting signed contracts and stuff like that. You know, like you're going to make your payments and here's our follow-up process and for collecting payments. Did you change any of that stuff too?
I did. So I partnered with a company to help get support for people who needed payment plans so that I wasn't the bank. So that was one thing that did help. So if people, needed more accessible options, that was fine. It just, I wasn't going to be the bank in that regard. So I did that. That was a big strategic thing that I did. The second thing that I did strategically that is logistic is that I changed the payment structure so that we at least had a 40% down on the program. The third thing that I did, now this was a huge thing that I did, and honestly, it did shift my entire business model because listen, I still have a business, I still have a team, and now our profit margins were in the red. So how are you supposed to continue to scale when now you're at capacity and resources of time, of energy? Because I can't do it all. I can't like do all fulfillment. I can't do all there's not 40 hours in a day.
And were you a one-person team at this point, or do you had some team members?
I had team members. So I had 3 sales team, and I had three people on my sales team. I also had a setter or 4 people on I'll say 4 people on the sales team. And then I had me, and then I had my ads manager, and then I had, and then my virtual assistant who's been with me from the start. So there were a lot of people working on this. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, Chris, if you're listening to this, I can never forget you. I also had Chris, who was my head coach, helping me in fulfillment.
Okay, got it.
So then what we had to do was...
by the way, that's a scary place to be when you're in the red and you have team members who depend on their salary to pay their bills. That's not a very fun place to be.
Oh no, it makes your stomach turn, right? It's a whole new level because first you have your kids, right? And their wellness, but like, hey, things go sideways. They don't go to camp for one summer. Who cares? They don't know any different, right? Now they're going to grandma camp. But but when you have people who are not only, they're not only invested in your, to pay their bills, they're invested in your vision, in your dream, and in your clients. Like that is talking about like staying up all night.
I've been there. I get it. It's not fun.
It's not fun.
So, I mean, you know the story. We had to do that when we hired Taylor. It was like I didn't have the money to pay her when I hired, but I needed her. So I hired her.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope this works.
I hope this works. So here's what we did. Okay. So the last thing that we did is I said, listen, I can't stop scaling. I have to these are hard lessons, setbacks that I didn't anticipate or wanted, but now we're going to deal with it. So what we did was we put in a low ticket lead as an option to, an accessible offer, essentially. So instead of bringing in people who were freebie seekers, this was another way that we upped the commitment, the energy commitment for our high ticket program. So now we're bringing in buyers. We build our email list of buyers. Now, a couple of things I want to say as we start to talk about this. People get this messed up because they think, if you have low ticket offers, then you're getting out of the market. You're getting to a different market and a different person. People who shop at Walmart are not going to also shop at Neiman Marcus or whatever, as an example.
Right.
Okay.
It's not true.
That's not, well, A, it's not true. And B, you're not creating a different offer for a different market. You're creating an offer that's for your market to get them prepared for the next offer. So for example, I kept bringing in all these people who wanted to work with me. They wanted coaching, but like they didn't have an offer. They think, oh, well, it's just my selling sessions. So now we've created smaller offers to help them be prepared to be the most successful in the premium offer. Right. So people, and then they also get into and I learned this from you. This was a huge reminder for me, which was that just because something's low ticket doesn't mean it's low value. Right. I have Disney Plus and Netflix, and I'm not spending $1,000 a month on those, but those are highly valuable as a mom of 2 little girls.
I love that SOM pattern. It's beautiful. The messaging and the teachings is great. Backed up
also learned that from you, right? But like that's an example, you know. So it's like so people get that messed up. We're not trying to create offers that are cannibalizing your high ticket. We're creating offers for people to get them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing with like Walmart when people use that as an example. It's like it's low cost, low value. We all know the quality is not great, right? But it's for people that just want a cheaper price on stuff that whatever. It's either what they can afford or they just, you know, like for me, I go there and buy fishing gear because it's like it's just cheaper and easy, you know. But this doesn't not translate to the course creator space. You can create something extremely valuable and have it at low price. And when you're strategic with it, it can help cover ad cost and take care of expenses. And you don't. I think this is where you're going. So just correct me if you're this isn't where you're making it, but I don't think people realize. People look at it as you buy something from me and now you're a customer. And technically that's true. The way we look at it, or I look at it, is that's just the highest caliber lead you're going to get for your higher ticket things. And I'm assuming that's what you guys started doing.
Yes. I mean, here's what we noticed. Absolutely. And here's what we noticed. And we've been doing this now for over a year. Okay. In the same low ticket offer. It's not like I'm creating a whole bunch of offers. It's the same one. Is that in addition to a higher quality lead, right? And when I am prefacing that, I just want to acknowledge that I know this is a person, right? This is a person, okay? But what we noticed is that the truth of the matter, and I don't know what the statistic is, but there are a lot of people out there that want to have a sales conversation, but because of their previous experiences being put down on calls or feeling awful about calls or you know, being in a really awful sales environment, whether it was one-to-many or one-to-one, they don't want to take that next action. So
the trust factor is very low.
Correct. And then what happens, I think what people are now at risk for is that, well, they're going to buy something. So they're likely going to buy from the person who has no problem potentially hurting you. So this is why we get pills and potions and things that could potentially harm. Yes, like detox teas or whatever. That's what I tell my clients, right?
I didn't say potion. I just think of like a cauldron and a witch, like throwing in rat tails and herbs and my little potion.
My detox tea.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yes, right. So they're going to buy something. Okay, so that was number one. And so what I noticed is that clients that were ready to have these sales conversations that weren't booking calls. They were being like, well, I don't want to book a call, but I will get this $7 thing. And then once they started getting results in advance, their perspective started shifting and the clear path to what it is that they wanted became present. Then they book a call.
I would say like they don't even have to get results yet with whatever they bought. Like, and some of them probably won't even go through it, right? Like it's just human behavior. But the fact that they pulled out a credit card, they put it down, they started a relationship with you, it's already, there's more commitment in that relationship versus someone who just opts in for a freebie who could be using a fake email address. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, even if they don't go through it, it's going to help drastically if they do get results with it and go through it for sure. But it's still going to be a much higher quality lead, even if they don't.
Even if they don't. And then the other thing that people get messed up when I'm building a customer list, a buyer list, is that it doesn't mean I don't have free stuff. There's over almost 400 episodes of podcasts that are technically free, but they cost resources. I pay a team to put it together, time, energy, skill.
Well, also there can be multiple funnels running at a time. And this is one of the things we've really embraced over this last year is like, yeah, we can have a freebie funnel. There's nothing wrong with freebies. You know, I want to be very clear. Beverly and I are not saying you shouldn't offer things for free. I still do it all the time. Free webinars, free workshops, free PDFs, free downloads. We have ads running to them. But at the same time, we also have low ticket offers, which we haven't dived into heavily, but a little bit here and there. And we're going to be diving into that heavily. And then we also have different types of freebies, which are like workshops, and we're going to do paid workshops, all of it leading to the same thing, all of it leading to a call to get people into our program. So, you know, I think sometimes people get into this mentality of this or that. It's so black and white, one way or the other. Should I launch or evergreen? It's like, it's all of it. Why not do all of it? All of it can work, and you have multiple funnels coming in and multiple leads coming in different ways. And sometimes you can cross-contaminate. Like we have people in our freebie funnel that then will get an email sequence of a $27 offer because they didn't come in through the low ticket offer. You know, it's like, it's not one or the other, I guess is what I'm saying. And so you can do it both ways.
So true.
Sure.
It's so true. And then I also noticed, right, there are other things that you could do. Like I will have free workshops that are only available to my low ticket buyers. And that, you know, hey, because you invested in this $7 thing, we're doing a free workshop just for you. That, right. In addition to that, right, that also improved our show up rates. So now instead of having our 10% show up rate for our live webinar that we were running ads to, we're getting a 30 to 40% show up rate because people feel like this is special. Because it is special. Yeah. And they're committed. And the other thing I like to tell my clients is that if you're committed to yourself at whatever capacity of investment that is, whether it's time, whether it's money, whatever level of money, then I'm going to be there with you and I'm going to match the energy and I'm going to get you to where you want to go. But I cannot want this for you more than you want this. Right. And that happens a lot. That happened a lot to what I was dealing with in the past with these people that were defaulting the contracts.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, it was like, hey, let me just do this for you. And I'll try to help you want it more. But
yeah.
And they just didn't.
Where did your mind go when all this was happening? When people defaulting on contracts? Did you get into any spirals or like self-doubt? And because I would imagine, you know, and I'm not saying this was the case, but because I know you and I know what you can deliver, but where my mind would go is like, am I just not teaching them good enough? Or like, what's going on here? Like, did you go into any self-doubt and things like that you had to pull yourself out of?
Oh my gosh, for sure. Oh my gosh, for sure. I mean, that was number one. And I think that for me, it was because, you know, I'm hard on myself. And this is what I call the high achiever's curse, right? It does not matter what the goal is that you've achieved. You already have another goal set ahead of you. That's like, well, okay, I did that, but I didn't do this. Right. So that it was huge for me. Yeah. What pulled me out of it, I'm going to say two things about this. The first was that I actually did look at it from an emotionally neutral place and looked for the holes that I could improve on fulfillment, right? What is part of the process that I could improve on? And that was what led me to, well, I need to communicate expectations more clearly. So that happened. Yeah. The other thing that happened is that I activated people's touch points much faster than I had. Like we would not, like in our onboarding process, we don't let people leave until their next call is booked. And then I, put some more accountability in for, one-on-one accountability so that nobody was left hiding. Right. So that was some of the things that we fixed. Other things that,
Well, and then knowing, well, I was gonna say, just knowing that based on what you already said in this episode, also is it, because I wanted, the reason why I wanted to ask this question is I know a lot of people face that. One of the things that becomes really hard is that this is our work, right? Like this is our work. By the way, guys, that was a dog. That wasn't Beverly, just so you know.
sorry.
Don't worry about that. No, we don't edit that thing out. We just roll with what. We just roll with what.
Abby just got home, so Charlie heard her.
What I think a lot of people go to is when people don't complete the program, or they don't finish the program, or they want refunds. Our automatic default is to go to a self-worth issue, or the program's not good enough, or I'm not good enough. And then it's like, then you run into this imposter syndrome. And for you, it wasn't any of that at all. What it sounds like, it was a program misalignment with customers. They weren't ready for that level of work. And so then it was either overwhelming or whatever it was, and then they kind of like, when you get into overwhelm, you just kind of sort of break down.
Yes.
But then when you switch the person coming in who is at that level that's ready, then all of a sudden the results in your business and the results they see start to shift and change.
For sure.
And so, that's the lesson I wanted to leave the audience members with, is like, look, guys, if people aren't completing programs or finishing it, maybe, there's always going to be things you can improve on. Like, you need to be a good teacher and have a good program. You need to care. You need to always be doing that. But sometimes there's also other elements besides that. And you can't get yourself into these like spirals, because it's just going to lead to not a very good place. And you were able to stay out of it and build from there, which is it's great. It's unbelievable.
I also simplified some of the process, right? So that was, and looked for the ways, because you brought up a good point, right? The overwhelm. People usually do one of four things when they get into overwhelm: is that they freeze, they run, or they get stuck and don't do anything, or the fawn, which is they try and people please. And so what I recognized when I see people are having an overwhelm response is I usually acknowledge it. Like, hey, you're going to be overwhelmed. I'd be surprised if you aren't. So then I would get them to name what their overwhelm is. Like, is it that you don't know where to start? Is it that you feel like there's too much to do and not enough time? Is it that you feel like there's too much to do and you feel like you're never going to be able to do it? So then when I could get that, then I would be able to coach them easier. So that really helped. Right. The other thing that I did was I have a folder of things because I tend to be hard on myself and always looking at the high achieving parts. I've really focused on celebrating wins. So I looked at my wins, I looked at my clients' wins, and then I recognized and remembered back to remembering who you are. Like, this is why I do this. I know that this works. I'm convicted that this works. I just need to put the right person at the right time with the right offer.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it works. And again, it all starts with the messaging to be able to attract the right people and your content and things like that. And so my question to you is I know you said you made shifts to content and messaging on the front end, but what specifically did you start doing with content to be generating more of these leads and the right people and getting people into your low ticket offers? Did you like get rid of all content, just do paid ads? Did you do a combo of both? Like what were some of the like marketing shifts you made to be able to scale a high ticket program to multiple six figures?
So I still use a combination of both. I use a combination of paid ads and organic marketing of regular content. So now in the past when I've talked about this a lot, part of the reasons why I don't have to post so frequently is because I have audience that's invisible, or I have my ads that are working for me. But what I started to do was I actually upped my frequency in posting on my organic efforts, because I noticed that it only helped my ads. When people were engaging and are engaging in my content, it only helped my ads. And then
in what way?
So what happened was, part of the reason that we were having issues were that we weren't pulling in the right people. Like, for example, I really love health and fitness. Like, I want to work with you if you are in the wellness space. But we were getting a lot of beauty people that were coming into my stuff. Like they were in like eyebrow waxing places. And we were like, that's not really our style. Yes, you can. That's not really our style, right? So that was confusing. Or we would get people that were not even certified, and we work with people that are at least in the process of getting certified. Bare minimum, right? Do no harm.
Yeah.
So, or they were biz opportunities, meaning like they had never coached before and they were like wanting to like, how do I start? And I'd be like, well, let's get certified at least first. So once I started speaking specifically to their problems, okay, so what happens to a lot of people, especially when they're new and they're like, well, I need to start with the people who are, maybe business opportunity or really struggling or not yet ready to help themselves. So I had to shift the problems that I was speaking to. So that was a big deal.
Yeah. Sorry, now I have my background noise. Beverly, you could tell we're family people here. Like we have kids, we got dogs, we got moms in the background making appointments. It's a mess. Anyways, all right. We're not going to edit any of it out, by the way. We're gonna roll.
I'm here for it all. I'm here for it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Okay. So I changed the messaging and the problem. So I changed the messaging in top of funnel, and then I started posting more, which helped my ads. Because then I was getting more of people that were like, hey, these problems resonate with me. And so I'll give you an example of a shift.
Sure.
One of the shift, like I kept saying, like, are you struggling to find clients versus like, hey, are you at max capacity with your in-person clients and then not sure if one leaves, where are you going to get the next one?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things I changed.
Ads. Is it help your ads because the algorithm liked seeing profiles run from someone who's active, and so you got lower cost leads and things like that? Or was it more along the lines of like, well, organic's on the rise, so now people who are engaging with organic are now being shown your ads, and that was helping conversions? Or was it like people saw the ad and then they went to go visit you and then saw all this content and loved it? Or was it maybe all three of those things?
It was probably a combination of both, but I'll say that it helped my ads just in terms of like, Facebook, despite what people may or may not think, they're not out to get you. They want your content to be put in front of people who are enjoying your content. So any type of engagement, whether it's a comment or like, but for me, I get mostly DMs. I ask for people to DM me and they slide into my DMs, but the algorithms can see that. And so they go, oh, this person likes her stuff, so let's put more people like them there. Okay, so that was one of the other things that I did. The other thing that I did to help assist algorithms, just so you know, is that I started engaging on the people's content that I wanted Facebook to show my stuff to. So,
oh, interesting. So you would engage like almost your competitors?
No, my clients. So if I saw someone that I'd be like, I really want to work with that person, I would comment on their stuff. Because then what happens is the algorithms go, oh, Beverly likes so-and-so's stuff. Maybe so-and-so will like Beverly's stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So I started doing those kinds of things. I will not like doom scrolling or like any of those weird, crazy things, but I would just start marking not interested on like the stuff I was getting served. And then I would start commenting on my people that I wanted to work with that I thought, you know what, I could really help this person. They've just never heard of me before.
Yeah, I love that.
And so then my ads started, and then I knew that the quality of my leads was improving based on the conversations I was having, based on, how they got me, what they were saying to me, what appealed to them. And I was like, yes, okay, we're in the sweet spot. And I know that it was a combination of shifting my messaging, of engaging with the people that I wanted to potentially work with, and then improving my organic audience, and then, having that low ticket offer, because now I can see who they are. It wasn't these like,
Right.
what's this at beauty? And just for the record, I just want to qualify that I have nothing against beauty products, but like, I don't think I've had a haircut in like 7 years. My friends are doing an intervention.
I mean, I wasn't gonna say anything, but I was gonna end this episode like, look, Beverley, all of our thousands of listeners who are watching you online, we all think we need a haircut.
It's just not my area of expertise, and thank goodness, because there's someone out there that is incredible at beauty and presenting beauty, and I hope that those people find each other, because I'm not it.
Well, it's just interesting that that's who was coming in, which again is I always tell people, like, the words that you say and the communication you use is literally the filter that's going to bring in who you bring in. And if you're bringing in the wrong people, then you're saying something that is resonating to the wrong people. So it has to shift and change.
So true.
And so it sounds like that's what you did. But it sounds like that's not only that's what you did in your messaging and marketing, but it sounds like, I mean, in your marketing up front and content, it sounds like you did it through the whole funnel.
The whole funnel. From start to the whole funnel. Whole funnel.
Yep. I love it. I mean, this has been really amazing, and it's been really cool to watch, and it's been really cool to see you grow into this space that you're in. I guess my final question or final topic to dive into is really a more of a high ticket sort of question, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are high ticket, like a lot of coaching programs. They want to sell more of their coaching programs and stuff. And I don't think you have a medium ticket. Do you? Do you have like that you launch, or that's just like low and then high, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So my question around that is, I want people, because I want you to walk people through the process that someone goes through to go from like seeing you and not opting in or buying anything to becoming a customer. Because sometimes I think people get this idea that high ticket is great and dandy, which it is, because you're making a lot more money. But I want people to also understand what it really takes to dial in high ticket and being able to get consistent sales, so that they're prepared for it business model wise. And I get that there's probably a lot of people listening where they do get high ticket, but it's mostly from referral or word of mouth, but they haven't quite cracked the code on how do we make this automated and continue to get consistent high ticket sales. So can you walk through just high level, what does that funnel and process look like for you? Because you've gone from 0 to multiple 6 figures with high ticket. So I'd love to hear kind of a breakdown of how that looks.
Okay, cool. So I like to build a pressure-free, permission-based sales system where it takes what it takes until it takes. So what that means and what that looks like for me is twofold. First, I think people underestimate the amount of content that it actually takes to take someone who's never heard of you before and turn them into a high ticket customer. I think that and a high ticket client, I'll say, because I differentiate my people between my customers and my clients. And people who invest in the high ticket program are my clients. And I think of it and so because there's this dream that is sold on the internet that's like, hey, post a piece of content, get them on the phone, and then they're going to drop 10 grand after this 45-minute call. Okay. Now that can happen, I suppose, but that I think is a really thin and misrepresentation of what it actually takes. Because what we have underneath that is the hours of content that this person has likely consumed, even if they've bought a program or they're just looking at your free stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to like throw in something real quick, because when you say the amount of content it takes, I want people to understand. I don't think, Beverley, what you're saying is your content that to grow an audience, like your front end content, like your Instagram content, YouTube. You're talking entire business and
Yes.
funnel content. So if
Yes.
you're going to do a webinar, that's content.
Yes.
The emails is content.
Yes.
The ads is content.
Yes.
All of those things are content.
Correct. Yes. So I'm defining content basically in the communication journey of like, here are your problems. Here are the real problems. Here's what you want. And here's what's preventing you from getting it. Like that takes a lot of messaging, from your social content to your long form content to your like consuming the offers that they buy. Do you know how many people have bought things and then have the best of intentions to open it and then just don't? Whether it's free or paid, from 27 to 2,700, it doesn't matter. That the numbers are arbitrary. You know, so people underestimate that. They just think like, oh, let me put on an ad and then I'm going to book a call. And then if I don't close them in one call, then I'm a horrible person. It's just not how it works.
Right. It almost never happens that way. And that's one of the things we realized when we moved into, like, it does every once in a while. Like, well, it happens to us a lot when we do launches. And that's because people are caught into the energy and the momentum, and they're in a Facebook group and the community's active. There's just like, that is like, how that's speeding up the warming up process is what launches are great for doing. There's a lot of work involved. And then what we realize when we do evergreen and like trying to sell, you know, our high ticket every month consistently, what we've realized is that it takes most people 2 or 3 times of seeing the offer and saying no before they finally say yes. But the thing is if you speed up how quickly they see the offer, then you speed up the buying and selling process.
Yes.
So that's why for us, we do weekly webinars and things like that, because it's like, let's get the offer in front of them. They said no. Okay, great. Let's invite them back to let them can see the offer again. Okay, and they said no. Okay, now it's the 3rd time. They still have the problem. They know they trust us because they're here for the 3rd time. The chances of them finally saying yes. And so that could be a 3-week process, but to take someone from cold to sale to 10K sale in 2 to 3 weeks is pretty good, especially when that cycle starts running, because then when someone comes in, it's 3 weeks. And once you get past that 3-week mark, there's always people every week booking calls and coming in.
Correct.
And so, so anyways, I know I interrupted.
No, you didn't. You didn't. That's exactly right. But that's exactly right, right? That's exactly what I mean is because, and that's what makes it permission-based and pressure-free. Because what happens is that it takes what it's going to take. Some people, they'll buy in one call, but likely never from the like, hey, how did I get here? Why am I on this call? Because I usually lead all of my calls with like, what's the biggest takeaway that you're hoping to get from this call?
Yeah.
And if they answer something that's like, I don't like, how am I on this call? I don't even know how I got here. Who's Beverley? Right. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Yep. Like that's just,
as we've noticed too on our sales calls, if they don't know who I am, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It just won't.
Right. I mean, and if it does, then either your offer's likely not priced correctly, or B, you've got the 1% of the 1% person, and that's great. And I'm happy for you. I hope that happens for you, but that's not the bar. That goes back to like expectations. That's like the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah. It does happen every once in a while where they're like, this person saw an ad for a freebie. They opted in, they booked a call, and then they bought. And you're like, cool. Yeah. But it doesn't like that is not 90% of the sales that are coming in for us.
Correct. I almost think of those as like, okay, those are the people that are in the ER and they have a bleeding neck and they're like going to do whatever it takes to like fix it. And great. If we're the right match, then I'm here for that. But it's likely not that experience, like that kind of experience. And then it also depends on the call, right? Because if that happens, I know that I have to my messaging has to still happen. So I have to present on the call. So it's almost like, okay, so now we've taken this 30-minute experience to 90 minutes because I need to give you my webinar. I need to give you the messaging because the messaging still matters.
Right. So let me make sure I understand. So you're doing like these ads and organic content things to low ticket offers. And then you're also running some freebies and stuff. And then from there, the next step is getting people to book a call, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And then how are you guys getting people to book calls? Is it just email sequences? I know you said you had a setter who's probably calling them and getting them to book a call. Is that the process for you?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then the sales calls, are you doing those right now, or do you have someone else doing them? Or
So
what does
I
that
had
process look
someone
like?
working with me for a while, and we were working together for a long time. And then I also want to share this because it's like, what happened to all those team members? Like, did you have to fire them and let them go? Luckily for me, right, it was a combination of, and for sales team, they want to make money. So they parted ways on their own because they weren't generating any revenue either. So it was a very like amicable, like, this isn't working. We're going to go find something else. So it was, let's touch base and connect. So it was a good, nobody, I didn't have to do that horrible process of like, you're amazing, but I just can't afford you. That didn't have to do that.
Right.
So right now it's just me doing the closes, but I had someone working with me for a while who wanted to do something different, not get out of sales. So that's fine. So now it's me doing the calls.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you're always going to get the highest conversion there. And I think, the thing I realized about this process, because we've gone through this, as you know, this process, and you've actually helped us a lot with this process through your own experience, is that, like, number one, no one's going to close as well as I can, or if they do, you're hired for life,
Yeah.
Someone probably could. But the thing is I had to do the same thing. This is another thing I think that people don't quite recognize, is that as the business owner, especially in a personal brand, you're going to have to be the one who does the sales calls. You just are, because now you're going to have to teach the team or the salesperson how to do it. You're going to have to monitor their calls. You're going to have to be able to like guide them and support them and do all of this stuff. So you're going to have to do it. And it's hard because you get into this like realm of like, I don't have enough time to be doing sales calls and everything else that there is in the business, but I can't stop because I can't stop the revenue from coming in.
Yes.
And so you get stuck in this like limbo area. And so for us, we've been able to get out of it, but it took a long time to be able to do it. And I've talked to a lot of people who are in the same space, and they all say the same thing. It takes time and all of that stuff. And so, for you, when you did bring someone on to do that, I know you're back in it now, but, was that an easy process for you to find someone to handle the sales calls? Was it not very easy? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah. So I'm going to say two things about this, because number one, I personally think, and this is just my personal opinion. Okay. That's my opinion, that people will sometimes hire things like salespeople and like Facebook ads management before they're necessarily ready. And what I mean by that is that they try to throw money at the problem and just, but they haven't, or at least even know how to do it. Right. And I think that like, so if I'm passing something off to you because I don't want to do the sales calls, because I can't do the sales calls, that does not create, in my opinion, an environment for salespeople to thrive, because you have to know the experience of a salesperson, meaning, and I've been doing sales since 2009. This is what we did in the gyms. You're going to have salespeople that have amazing months, but then they'll fall and they'll not know why they're falling, and then they'll get in a rut. And as a manager, you have to be able to see that that's happening, know how to help them get out of it. You have to be able to help them sharpen their skills, because what I noticed from being experienced and then also working with people who have experience is that our brain is designed for efficiency. So people who are doing the same thing 5 to 6 times a day, like literally the same conversation, the brain starts thinking, oh, I know what this person's going to say. I know what this person's going to say. So salespeople stop listening. They start anticipating, they stop being present, and they start making decisions based on past experiences versus what people are presenting and being in the trenches with them right there. And if you don't know how to do that yourself or help someone else through that, you're throwing money at a problem and not being able to do it.
Well, the thing that I've realized is some of this stuff you can just bring in the experts and they can just come in and do it. But what I have realized is that if you're pretty green and you're just like getting into this business and you aren't making enough money quite yet, we'll just put it this way: you're pretty green. You're trying to get into it, and when it comes to like Facebook ads, or it comes to hiring salespeople and these things, and you know that you don't want to learn yourself, you would just rather have someone do. The person that will actually make it work and be able to do it for you is probably way too expensive and someone you can't afford. And someone who's at your price point is going to need the guidance, a little bit of oversight. They're going to have to be trained on it. You're going to have to work with them. You're going to have to, but how are you able to do that if you don't understand how to do it yourself?
Yes.
And so we see this with messaging too. People want to outsource their messaging. I'm like, that's great, fine, and dandy. Like, I can write an email that's probably going to get a higher open rate than what you've been able to get in the past by asking you some questions and getting a deeper understanding of your audience. I could do that. But now what happens when you need to go write an email yourself, or you're going to do a live, or you're going to do a story, or you're going to speak on stage, or you're going to create a webinar? Like, you didn't learn the skill.
Right.
So what do you expect is going to happen? So unless you have a team member who's going to do all that stuff for you, there is no having someone come in and do your messaging, because the messaging is it's your communication, it's your lingo. And so yeah, you do have to sort of get in there with certain things. I don't think it needs to be everything, but I'll tell you firsthand, like, I did almost every position in our company personally, that is here. Now I'm finally at the point where there are things that we just bring someone to do it, and I'm like, I have no clue. I really have no clue what to think. Like, we just upgraded the Course Creator 360. I logged in one time and they're like, do this. I'm like, I don't understand what any of that is. I don't know what I don't like the things the team is telling me. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and I totally agree. Like, there's definitely a time for that. Like, you don't have to be a tech expert. I think there's a difference between like, hey, this is the expert that knows what they're doing and they're going to come handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as your profit margins are, good and solid and make sense for you, then fine, I'll be it. But like, what I see a lot of beginner people, just like you were saying, is that they're like, oh, well, I'm going to either overprice or overinvest in these freelancers, but then they have no idea. Like, what if not that it would ever happen or would happen to you, but like, what if your Facebook ads manager just falls asleep at the wheel? How are you going to know? Are you going to be able to see like, oh wait, we changed this?
It puts you, and it puts you at the mercy of the freelancer.
Yes.
When something could happen, then they could change their mind. They could drop you as a client, whatever. And you have to understand they all have multiple clients.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not ever going to get someone who has that dedicated, an invested interest that you have. And so it does put yourself at a risk. And so I do think, like, especially when you're starting out building, creating funnels and stuff, it is worth mastering yourself for sure. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you coming on today, Beverley, and sharing all this with us. I would love for you to just tell people how they can learn more about you. I know you work with fitness professionals on scaling their business online. So if you have any fitness professionals who are like, I want a business like what Beverley has, I want to figure out how to get more clients, how to create engaging content, like, where can they go, where they can learn more about you? How can they reach out to you?
So the best places to find me are at B Simpson Fitness. That's on Instagram. And then I'm also the host of the PT Profit podcast. So those are the places that I would send people.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Beverley, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with our audience. And also, I know I've said this to you privately, but I'm going to say it publicly. I am so grateful for all the support and guidance and help you've been giving our students over the last, 4 or 5 years, or however long it's been, and the dedication to helping them all see results. I know a lot of them are listening right now, so I just wanted to say thank you so much, and a thank you from them as well.
It's been a pleasure and a privilege to learn from you, to work alongside you, and thank you so much for bringing me on the show today.
Of course. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know by leaving us a review on iTunes, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.